As Steve said, we're here to talk to a couple of CEOs and a couple of customer success executives, see how they align together for the growth of their business. And so I'm going to start quickly and ask each of our panelists to just take a quick minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right in. I want to take questions from the very beginning. We're here to answer your questions so that you leave with the information you came looking for, so feel free to raise your hand at any time. We only have about 30 minutes, so we want to make sure we cover everything you guys want to hear. So, Umberto, you want to introduce yourself?
Happy to. Thank you. CEO of InsideView. We're a CRM intelligence company. We bring customer insight into the CRM process and help account management, sales, and marketing do a better job of engaging with customers and prospects. About 10,000 customers. We have a dedicated customer success team that is run by my cohort, Leon.
Leon.
And I'm Leon Drozdowski, and I don't have to say another word.
Perfect. Jason.
Jason Lemkin, co-founder and was CEO of Ecosign, which is the most popular e-signature service on the web. We were acquired by Adobe July 15th, 2011 at about 11:18 p.m. And Eitan and I, no one's counting. Eitan and I worked together from about $2 million in run rate to sort of mid 8 figures. And learned a lot together. So it's been an interesting journey seeing that grow, in an order of much more than an order of magnitude together.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I'm Eitan Saban. I'm running the customer success for Adobe Ecosign. Been there for 5 years. Jason brought me in to be the first CSM, and now I have a team of about 25 CSMs. So it was an amazing journey.
Great. Remember, questions, raise your hand at any time. I'm going to start with Umberto and Jason. Let's set the stage. How do you guys see the CSM teams sitting within your organization? And do you look at them as a cost center or a revenue generator? Jason, you want to start?
Yeah, I think, at least for me, Umberto has more years of experience than I do that are on point. For me, it was a learning experience. So what I've learned is, the first year it's a cost center, right? So you get your company going and you get a bunch of customers, and then it turns out you have to actually support them in the second year, right? And so and then by about the third year, you start to see how this revenue compounds, right? And that customer that you got for $10,000 the first year renews for $20,000 the next year, and you turn around and 3 years have gone by, and it's a $100,000, $1 million customer. And so, at least for me, it was an evolution of seeing it as a cost center. And then once you hit maybe just 4, 5, 6 million revenue, it's clear it's accretive. It's clear it's accretive. I would say for us, ultimately, especially once we got our viral loop and our referral loop going, we grew at least 100% by revenue every year, and 80% of that came from the base. So if you think about it, I could get rid of the whole sales team, never hire anybody, just have Eitan and his team. I could still grow 80%. That's not bad. And it's cheaper than paying salespeople all in because you already have the customer. But that took me, for what it's worth as a CEO, it took me about 2.5 years to figure out that accretive math.
So, Eitan, would you agree, or did you figure it out before Jason?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that, and as the company evolved, right? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, to get into a churn rate, which we were able to achieve in Ecosign or in Adobe Ecosign, it's take a lot of time and a lot of dedication, hiring processes. Really find the right customer-centric success manager. And to Jason's point, I think that it's in the end of the day, if the sales team will not be there, or the marketing team will not be there, actually it was mentioned earlier on the other session, the customer, the company will still grow, right? So and that's a huge point here. I mean, manage your churn and be there for your customers, and you will be able to take your install base and your company to a growth which many other companies can just be jealous about this growth. Right?
Mm-hmm. Umberto, what about it inside view?
I think of it as an investment in customer success. An investment that you make beyond your product investment to help your customers be successful. And obviously everything that you do should drive revenue, and everything you do has cost associated with it. So it's not cheap, but I think it's the right level of investment if you're looking in the long term. Because ultimately, the way you grow companies is to have successful customers that then grow and then bring more customers.
So did you see a period of time where it was a cost center, and then at what point did it turn into a revenue generator?
Yeah, I think like most growth companies, we were too late to recognize the need to make that investment. You always think you're going to build something and people will figure it out. And the reality is the bigger the customer, the more help they need figuring it out. And not everybody gets to figure it out as quickly as others. So we were late, too late at that. And I wish I could have started it a year earlier.
Leon, what do you think?
Oh, when I came on board, they had already started the process, and the team that I inherited was a revenue-generating team. So I've been there 2 years. Since then, our whole measurement of success is based on revenue generated in different sectors. So renewals, retention, now services, and other things. So we're very much a revenue-generating organization.
What about alignment with the sales teams? How do you guys feel the CEOs have kind of helped align you, or have they? or what could they do to better help align you with the sales teams? Leon?
Well, Umberto has a big whip.
Oh.
No, actually, we've aligned
That was
with
a joke. Just to be clear.
I will keep my coat on. So. We've aligned with the sales team in many ways. Actually, when I first came on, I aligned the CSMs with our sales teams, individual people in the sales teams, so that they actually could strategize and work through on upsells and new account penetration based on the size of the deal.
What did you see? What was the outcome of that?
Well, actually, it enabled us, the CSM team, to understand better how sales moves product, and then see how our contribution could actually help in those strategic moments when we needed to differentiate. So we became a differentiator in that respect. Since then, we've kind of moved away from the teaming concept, and we focus more on my team actually generating upsell opportunities in Salesforce, for example, which is our CRM, and building those opportunities out and assigning them to salespeople that they work with, so that there's a very direct correlation between us and the sales efforts, both for upsell and strategic new accounts.
Are you done? Anything, Dad?
Actually, the way I see that, I mean, it's very similar to Leon. And Jason was, kind of, contributed to this kind of a mindset. Was, the way I see the, Brendan, which is our VP of Sales, which is running the sales organization, is actually my customer, right? I need, or my organization need to make sure that he is the happiest guy on earth, or his team are the happiest guys on earth around the upsell opportunities, right? On the other end, it's very clear. Again, it's kind of a sensitive area, right, between sales and customer success, right? Sales really want the closers. They want to close more accounts. They want to close. I mean, let's go to the next upsell. Basically, that's the best lead out there for these guys. But sometimes you need to be careful, right? I mean, you can't go to any account and say, hey, let's just go and upsell an account which is not healthy, right? So that's a key part on this kind of relationship, right? So there is, again, for us, it was kind of yes, it's my customer, but on the other end, let's just make sure that we are partnering here around the upsell opportunities in a way that it's not hurting our common customers.
Now, Umberto, did you feel any, was there pushback from sales when you brought in the customer success team? I mean, how did you as the CEO sit them down and say, hey, we need to align, this is an important initiative, this is where our company is going?
Yeah, I think the challenges come, what we just talked about, which is really around account ownership, right? Who owns the relationship with the customer? In the reality, it's not so simple. Sometimes a customer is still very young, and maybe you're only lightly penetrating through that account. That still is an account needs to be sold. Some other customers are fully penetrated. There's really not a lot for sales to do at that point. And then there are a whole bunch of accounts where ownership is really a joint ownership process. So that's a conversation we keep having around what is the best way to define account ownership. And ultimately, it has to be a collaboration. But sales teams will tend to be territorial around my accounts and don't mess with my accounts. And good customer success teams are also territorial around it's my customer. Don't get in the way of me making them happy. So I think a lot of the creative tension comes around that topic.
Now, Jason, does marketing play into this at all? Into the alignment?
Into aligning sales and client success?
Well, just overall, I mean, do we need to have a marketing alignment into the customer success team and also the sales team?
There may be a more nuanced answer to the question my colleagues can answer. My view is, if you talk about marketing as demand generation and lead nurturing and lead management, then they're all three parts of the same circle, right? Marketing should generate, nurture, and create the opportunity that sales closes and client success then manages over 6 years, hopefully. In terms of the deep feedback loop, I'm not sure we had a lot of feedback between our head of marketing, who was really simply VP of demand gen at the end of the day, and I'm not sure we saw that much that I was aware of.
Right, but on the other end, I think that basically the way I see that customer success and the VP of marketing have to be the best friends on earth, right? I mean, the way that you generate the outreach to your long tail of customers, that's really kind of it's kind of a marketing kind of a program, right? So and if you partner in the right way with your marketing team, you can get their help to generate this the content and build this kind of a webinars or what we call kind of the one-to-many relationship, right? So that's a key part of I think of the relationship between this triage, right? I mean, this holy triangle of sales, marketing, and customer success.
Now these are burning a hole. Oh, okay.
How do you, general question, tell me how you think about customer success compensation. What are the trade-offs that you have to make? Because it seems like it's a big issue. It's all over the place. And do CSMs prefer a pulse check or their doilies?
Very good.
We talked about this a little bit on our prep call too. So
well, I'll throw out a framework that I've thought about, and I'd love to hear from my colleagues on this. I thought about a lot. Your basic, what I like for alignment is, at the end of the day, most of your sales team is going to be set up on a 50-50 program, one way or another. Half their OT is base, however they get it, and half is upside. Hopefully they'll make more if they're great, but 50-50 is the basic idea. My rough sense is client success should probably be something around 75-25. You want a variable thing, you want to pay them for upsells, and you want to pay them for retention at a higher than planned rate. But you don't want, at least for me, for what I want to do, because we got 80% of our new revenue from our base, I didn't want to turn client success into mercenaries. I didn't want to turn them into salespeople. I really had an adverse allergic reaction to pure renewal reps who did nothing but parachute into a customer, ignore them if there was no upsell opportunity. In fact, treat them inherently poorly and only focus on if there's money. So even though you're leaving money on the table, I didn't want that. So when I thought about it, however you structure it, I like this. Maybe at the elite level it's higher, but 75-25 I like. It seems to me the right balance between someone who isn't a revenue stakeholder and someone who does nothing but revenue, split it in the middle.
Right. I would add to Jason's point, which is again, it's a very generous, I have to say, right? I mean, I think that for CEOs out there, I mean, you have to be generous with your success team, and the reason for that is, in the end of the day, these guys are the CEOs of your customers, right? So, and think about it, right? I mean, when you treat your success managers, your account managers in the right way, the way that these guys will handle your customers will be, it will lead into the right direction. Another thing which we also did kind of recently was, here's the thing. When we talk about upsells, here's the thing, it's great, right? I mean, for the sales rep, which actually didn't really, touch the account in the last year or two, they just get, this upsell after all of this hard work from which the customer success manager did, to onboard and to renew and to identify this opportunity and so on. So it's really important to provide this kind of small amount of, of kind of a percentage of this delta, this upgrade delta to the success manager. Having said that, if they didn't really hit the renewal rate, so then of course, we're not going to pay. We'll provide, I would say, kind of 50% or 30% of the upsell, right? So again, it's not, to Jason's point, we didn't really want to drive our success managers to become kind of, closers and really go after the opportunity, right? I mean, number one job is the renewal and managing the churn.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done here too, is the customer success manager is not viewed as a salesperson to the customer. The customer sees them as their trusted advisor and the one that helps them better utilize the product and help them through adoption planning and to get people to actually use and realize value from the product. And when they do that, we get the retention, we get the renewals.
And do you have any hunters on your team?
We have no hunters on our team. What we do specifically, as I mentioned earlier, from the sales perspective is to inform the sales team of upsell and cross-sell opportunities by creating an opportunity in Salesforce and putting it out there for them. They get comped based on the number of those they put into the system and are accepted.
On a related topic, though, we have learned that having some level of sales background can make a CSM more successful. Purely a service type of background doesn't always have kind of the proactive nature where you're always thinking about how to expand the value that I bring to the customer. That's more of a kind of a sales thinking. So, and there are a lot of people who start in sales and then realize that's not really what they want to do with their life. But I've learned the importance of, driving conversations and being proactive. So that's not a compensation question. That's more of a skills question. But.
Right. And we view them more like account managers without the revenue responsibility sitting out there.
So a question right there.
Thanks. Yeah, just sort of continuing this, but on the role topic of the CSM, maybe less on the kind of sales dimension, but sort of on the continuum where on one end of the continuum is really sort of a high ratio customer to CSM sort of model, and it's really about kind of the monthly checkpoint and making sure things are sort of moving forward. And then on the other end of the continuum, I have guys with MBAs on my team that are really about adoption and driving. It would tend to work with a more complicated platform type of product. But I'm wondering, and in some ways, you kind of need both as well, right? So I'm wondering, how did you guys kind of navigate that, and where did you sort of end up on that continuum for your CSMs, or did you call it two different roles or something?
Well, if I think I understand the question correctly, you have some that are more transaction oriented with a lot more account support, many accounts to support, I should say, and then some that are more strategic in dealing with larger accounts. And that's very similar to what we do. We break our teams by small business, mid-market, and enterprise. And the enterprise typically is supporting somewhere between 25 and 35 accounts. And they're expected to spend more time with those accounts on a daily basis, if necessary, touching them to make sure that they're realizing the value of the product they purchased. And then there's segmentation within that, of course. And the same is true of mid-market. Mid-market has some high-level accounts, but they're typically carrying about 75 accounts or so. And then we get down to small business, and there's a lot of transaction, and that's where most of our churn is. And they typically are carrying anywhere from 110 to 160 accounts. So there's less touch, they're smaller accounts, and they're more transactionally oriented, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we call kind of the one-to-many relationship versus the one-on-one relationship, right? I mean, when you look into this kind of triangle where you have, on the top, you will have this, high-touch customers, the mid-touch, and then kind of a no-touch. And, the no-touch is not really no-touch because, the one-to-many programs which we enable in Ecosign is, programs like, webinars and Google Hangouts, open hours, and stuff which will, again, that's kind of the marketing customer success relationship, which I talked about earlier, right? I mean, that kind of a great programs which really show your customers that you care about. But again, it's not there. There is no kind of there is no name attached to this CSM which handle the relationship. But again, the customers still feel that they get the care. And again, from scalability standpoint, I think that if when you handle this long tail of customers, I don't see other kind of way to handle that unless, I miss or something.
Let me answer maybe just one other piece of the question that you might have been asking. You know what? When we started to scale our business, the metric that I was taught is that most SaaS companies roughly have a metric of about 1 CSM per 2 million in ACV. And you know, that can break down at some levels. If you have a very low-end market and you can staff it with a bunch of kids that borders into customer support, obviously that number could be much lower, at $500,000. But it's sort of true. But then I learned, so that's great. There's like all these SaaS rules, like sales and marketing should be less than first-year ACV. But then you realize there's nuances in it, right? And I learned there's 2 nuances. First of all, you better hire those extra CSMs before you get to 2 million, because it's really going to break as they hit 2 million, okay? And second of all, your first 3-4 folks are all going to be sort of generalists, right? But then you need solutions architects. Like the sophistication of what Eitan does today at Ecosign, to say it's an order of magnitude more sophisticated than 36 months ago would be an understatement, right? The sort of solutions that his team creates especially for the top 50 or 100, I mean, it's incredibly sophisticated. So when you add in, and those are, in a sense, they're a cost for his team, right? Because he's got to service the same number of customers. And so instead of 2 million per CSM, my rough math is that brings your load down to like $1.5 million per rep per high-end, mid-rent you need to see it. You're going to end up needing the CSM plus the support, like you need sales ups. And then you have to hire it early. So when I do all the math, maybe it's like 1 per 1.4 in these multiple, with these multiple hats, if you're scaling. And I bet if you do all the math and you look at LinkedIn on companies and you match their revenue to CS, it'll come up something similar to that. And so convince the CEOs to hire early, right, Umberto? Not wait until the stress point hits.
Yeah, I think having a model where you can kind of think ahead of where your business is going to be and what you're going to need in 6 months or a year, because that's how long it takes to hire people and bring them up to speed, is really useful. I also think there's a big danger in averages, right? So we have a bunch of small business customers. It turns out that 10% of them just have tremendous growth opportunities, right? And how do you recognize that? And I think the underlying challenge with customer success at the small and medium business segment is how do you deliver customer insight to your account managers or customer success managers in a way that makes them aware of their customers. So they're not just doing the check-in and asking a bunch of questions, but they are able to track their customers, because averages have this big issue that it averages everything in, and your customers are not averages. They're all different, and they all have different needs and opportunities. But if you're dealing with a lot of them, how do you bring insight into those customer success? So I think Gainsight type of products can be helpful, and having good customer insight that tells you in your install base what the real opportunity is really critical. I think there's still tremendous opportunity for all of us to better understand who our customers are and where the opportunity is and how we can help them. And that's not a transactional activity. That has to be transactionally, it has to scale with volume, because otherwise you can't afford to do it, but it has to be more insightful than just doing a bunch of transactions.
Do we have any other questions in the audience? Oh, we have one right here.
So I do believe face-to-face conversation will help to build a connection between customer and customer success. So there can be some cost. So what do you think of the cost for visiting customers? It can be flight, hotel, and a lot of cost.
Cheapest investment you can make. I mean, I'll defer to my colleagues, but I guarantee. You have a $3,000 ACV customer. I mean, it's just a little tough to go to Austin and stay in the W and rent the car. I mean, come on. I mean, you better be getting Dell out of that or something like that. But I have to tell you, I'm semi-quantitative. The thing, from my perspective, it's all about growing your customers, right? And we have so many customers that we have grown an order of magnitude over many years, over a half a decade. And the one thing I know is visit them, right? And in fact, I'll tell you, I've a bunch of my friends that are CEO of SaaS companies that have achieved scale. They're at 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. The one question I always ask my friends who are running these companies is like, how much time do you spend with your customers? And you know what the answer is? None. They spend a lot of time with their prospects, okay? They spend a lot of time in deals, and when there's a problem and the customer's in the Bay Area, they get it, they get the Lexus fired up, and they go there. But I say to them, how much time do you spend with your top 50 customers? And they never spend enough time. And if you go, I guarantee you the odds of you losing that customer plummet, and the odds of you upselling that customer go. And you go in the client success role, and then for the good ones, make sure your boss goes, because you have to show your customers respect. If you show your customers respect and you don't totally screw it up, you're never going to lose them, right? So for what it's worth, I just can't think, from managing a P&L for years, I can't think of a cheaper investment than, go. Get on the plane.
There's also a way to scale that. You don't always have to go to the customer. It doesn't always have to be the customer success team. So what I do is whenever I'm in a city, I always try to see, I ask the customer success team and say, who do we have as customers in the city, and can I go visit them? So I'm already spending that money. I can use that time. Last week we had our users conference, so now we get to touch 300 customers. They're making the investment to come to you, something like this. That's another touch point. Right? You can have your salespeople do touch points. So as long as you think more broadly that customer success is a company function and not just a function of the CSM team, then you can reduce the cost of touching your customer in person quite substantially.
To add to this point, I think that one of the things which we started to do, when we talk about this, the top of the pyramid, right? I mean, for the high-touch customers, the customers which pay more than $100,000, let's say, right? So a year in terms of ACV. The success managers have to meet these guys face to face. There is nothing, I mean, you cannot compare any relationship. You know what? You cannot build a relationship in kind of a customer for life, kind of a mentality without meeting your customer. You cannot do that. And I don't believe in that. It's like a platonic kind of a relationship. You can't. I mean, great. You help your customer with your, you solve their problems, and you are on their emails, and you answer, their phone calls and so on. But the face-to-face, it's important. And of course, the customers which pay you a lot compared to others, you just show them the respect. And as Jason said earlier, take your boss. That's a key.
We actually get our enterprise CSMs involved in the pre-sales of large accounts. So they're seeing the customers even before they're customers. And that kind of builds the bridge.
Right. We have one more question. I think we're almost out of time. So right here.
The customer success team ends up with the richest tacit knowledge of how the product is actually being used by customers. How do you capture that tacit knowledge and feed it back to the product group so they keep getting it right for the customer?
Well, what I hope that your head of product is at the hip of your head of client success. That's what we had with Iran, who's not far from where I am today. Just like, I mean, at least if you're in a growth company, I want the product and client success to be a lot of friction. This is going to be a frictionful relationship because the customers are upset and the features aren't there, and they can only yell at the CEO so much because he gets tired, and so there's going to be a lot of blowback. But you need to find a way to have them be twins, I think. Add the head of sales in that, and then you have magic.
Right, and it's also really important, for you as a customer success, VP, let's say, to prioritize for your product manager, right? I mean, without this prioritization, it will be, kind of, I would say, kind of a horrible life of, fighting every day about the new feature which you just heard about yesterday from a meeting with customer X, Y, and Z, right? So that's that's one thing. Another thing which I kind of learned in the last couple of years is that, the product team is your partners, right? I mean, they have to be there in these meetings with your customers. I mean, it's great news to your customers that you bring your head of product, your head of engineering, and get these guys to listen to the customer, right? I mean, and I think that Jason did a great job of creating kind of a customer-centric company where everyone really understands what the customers really want, right? And then I think that get them into this understanding, and then prioritize. That will be another kind of another point to leverage on the relationship with your customers.
I'll throw out, for what it's worth, I'm making up a metric on the fly, but if I had to do another SaaS company again, I would say 20%. Once I had a company that was just at traction, say a couple million in revenue, I would want my head of product to spend 20% of his time with customers, and that's ultimately, Ron probably hit that number. It's all the top customers. He was there with the review meetings, on the calls, face to face, and just like I think as a CEO, you should probably spend 20% of your time recruiting. You got to do it. I think as a head of product, once you have 100, 1,000 customers, 20% of your time. It's just the most valuable. You're not really going to learn where to take the product in 24 months, but you're going to learn where to take it in 3 months. and you're going to learn how to maximize revenue over the next 12 months. It's just nothing, 20%. And if you don't have that, just make that his job, 20%. You just sorry, you don't report to me.
I think knowledge is actually, knowledge sharing is the easier part. I think the harder part is making the trade-offs. And you have things you could build that would get you more sales, or you have things you could build that would keep your customers happy. And I think that's really where the interesting friction comes in. And my perspective is that in general, sales is going to have a disproportionate amount of weight behind their requests. And you as a CEO need to balance that and give the voice to the customer. Because the customer in general doesn't have a tremendous amount of voice until they say, I'm no longer going to be a customer. And oftentimes that's too late, and they're giving you the wrong input, and maybe they were the wrong customer to begin with. But how do you give more weight to the voice of the customer that's a happy customer, that's going to drive more adoption and engagement, and balance out the natural power that sales is going to have because they bring the new revenue in the door. And I think that's a place where a good executive team can balance those things out. And ideally, obviously, you look for the things that help both parties out, but sometimes you do have to make that trade-off.
I would agree 100%. I'd even go further. I think
They applauded me. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah. Well said. I think a great VP of Client Success, actually their job is to manage up and manage the CEO, wherever their boss is, to make sure that this balance between sales and new features and existing is optimized, right? Your VP of Sales can't do it perfectly, even if they're holistically viewed. You've got too much to do, right? And so you need someone to effectively, but also efficiently, without everything being an alarm, without everything being a drama, be proactive, help guide you to this right decision. And I think that of all that, in growth companies, hopefully there's not a ton of politics and drama, but the head of client success sometimes is like you gotta practice a little politics. You got to manage all these people and create alignment and guide them to this outcome because there's not enough voices for the customer, right? They're outweighed by the voices of the prospects.
All right, guys, we're out of time. Since we had 3 people ask questions, I'm going to award these to you, so please see me after the session and join me in thanking Eitan, Jason, Leon, and Umberto.
All right.